songs that I listen to on the regular.
Boundary-pushing hip-hop and R&B from around the globe. Music and Culture by Drake.
I always say it's so much deeper than music.
On his exclusive Sirius XM channel.
The one and only Sound 42.
To hear Sound 42, activate your radio by calling 844-711-8800 or visit SiriusXM.com/go.
One small step for man.
And on a musical trip. Sirius XM 60s Gold.
I'm picking up good vibrations.
All 60s hits. To hear 60s Gold, activate your radio now. Call 844-711-8800 or go to SiriusXM.com/go to sign up quickly.
You deserve the best. With the SiriusXM Platinum VIP plan, you can unlock the ultimate listening experience in up to 2 cars and stream anywhere with 2 app logins. Enjoy our greatest content, opportunities for live VIP experiences, and prioritized customer care. Plus, get access to over 5,000 audio and video concert recordings through nugs.net. Call 844-711-8800 and become a VIP. Offer details apply. Not available in Canada.
On SiriusXM.
To fight for our democracy. That's been the work of my first term.
Thrilled to be back with thousands of proud American patriots.
Where every voice matters.
I'm as far left as you can get.
This president has not complied with his oath.
Left, right, center, decided, or undecided.
We have to use our voices. We have to stand up for what we believe.
The only place for every perspective and your voice about your vote. On SiriusXM.
There you go now.
I think I'm
Oh, that's nice. There you go now.
I think I'm
Oh, that's nice.
If you've been thinking about buying a home, you need to be in the zone, the home buying zone. You need a game plan to win in this great real estate market. The Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage has all your bases covered. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, purchasing your dream home, refinancing, consolidating debt, or even considering a reverse mortgage, contact the Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage today. They have the lowest closing costs and they'll close your loan on time, guaranteed, or they'll pay your first mortgage payment. And they even have a 3.5% purchase down payment grant that can get you into a home with little money out of your pocket. It doesn't get more clutch than that, folks. Score big on the biggest purchase of your life. Call Equity Zone Mortgage today at 1-800-772-8624. That's 1-800-772-8624. Or apply online at equityzonemortgage.com and tell them Big C sent you as heard on the Big C Sports Podcast. License number 0181468.
Rondo Deportes, bonjour, vidi vidi vici, let's get ready to rumble. Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton of Big C Sports. This is Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to me, and people who love the universe, and that would include you. What a beautiful March the 21st in 2024. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them sent ya, where the good Lord split ya, as well as driving a fleet of Cadillac cars all over the universe. Really do appreciate that. You can follow Big C Sports Podcast coming to you on 29 podcast applications all over the universe and streaming on 4 TV platforms. Really do appreciate that. What I also love about Big C Sports Podcast, you can find us on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really do appreciate that. But I love doing as much as anything when I do Big C Sports Podcast. I'm going to talk about some March Madness. Of course, March Madness is underway. I'm going to talk about what's going on in the world of a little bit of politics too. But you know, I think I'm the only sports show in the universe that always pays homage to the California Reparations Task Force, because a mine is a terrible thing to waste, and I will always do that. I want to even talk about a special guest that I have coming on today. But I want to make sure that I do what nobody else does in this country. Pay homage to the California Reparations Task Force. I want to give praise to Attorney Camila Moore. She's the chair. She's brilliant. I want to give praise to Dr. AMOS C. Brown, the vice chair. He's brilliant. Going to have him on today. I want to give praise to California Senator Stephen Bradford. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. I want to give praise to Council Member Monica Montgomery Steppe. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Assembly Member Reginald Jones Sawyer. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. I want to give praise to Dr. Shell Grills. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Attorney Lisa Holder. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. And I want to make sure that I give praise to Dr. Javon Scott Lewis, professor at California Berkeley. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. And I want to give praise to Attorney Donald K. Tamaki, and he's part of the California Reparations Task Force. I love giving them all praise, and you can too. Give them praise, praise, praise. That's what I love doing with Big C Sports Podcast. I want to thank This Is CNN, proud sponsors of Big C Sports Podcast. I want to give praise to Double O, part of the PI Committee for the National Black Wall Street Project. Also has her own financial economic awareness talk show called Let's Eat. She sent me Executive Order 13985, which is further advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. That's called the White House. That was President Biden's first day in office. At the same time, I want to thank Senators Marco Rubio and Rick Scott of Florida. They reintroduced a bill to Congress called Holocaust Survivors' Rights. They did that last year. I love giving them praise. I want to give praise to Georgetown University because they pledged over $1 billion and counting to 272 families that were descendants of chattel slavery that helped build Georgetown University. So for people that say, oh, they don't believe in reparations, you can go right there where I just told you Georgetown University pledged $1 billion and counting. I really do appreciate that. I also want to thank Double O of the PI Committee for the National Black Wall Street Project. She sent me Executive Order 13985, but she also sent me something from the United Nations. It says that strong political will and strong leadership are crucial to ensure reparatory justice for people of African descent. I love giving that praise. You got to give it praise too, because I'm not shucking and jiving. Everybody has their own thoughts about what they need to do in the world of sports and politics. But I also, before I have Mr. AMOS C. Brown come on, I want people to Google Freedman's Bank. Freedman's Bank is so important, and a lot of people don't even know about it. What's Freedman's Bank, Big C? Well, Freedman's Bank was created by Congress in 1865. It lasted until 1874. And the bank, chartered by the United States Congress, provided a place for former slaves to safely store their money. After several successful years in which the freedmen deposited more than $57 million in the bank, it collapsed as a result of mismanagement and fraud. Now, the bank's failure not only robbed many African Americans of their savings, but also had a severe psychological impact on them, causing many to give up hopes and dreams that went along with their savings and bringing about a general distrust of financial institutions. If you understand, everything I say on my show is factual. The need for the bank for freed black Americans became evident during the American Civil War. African American soldiers that joined the Union Army to help defeat the Southern Confederates were the soldiers in the Union Army who were oftentimes denied access to conventional banks. They were often taken advantage of by swindlers. You got to keep that in mind. It was John W. Alford, a congressional minister, and Anson M. Sperry, a United States Army paymaster, individually identified that need and attempted to foster the creation of such an institution in early 1865. And think about what happened then. Alford's efforts culminated in the legislation passed by Congress March 3rd, 1865, that incorporated Freedmen's Savings and Trust Company as a non-profit financial institution. President Abraham Lincoln, he immediately signed the bill into law, and then Sperry began working for the bank shortly thereafter. However, according to the charter of the Freedmen's Bank, the money deposited was to be invested in stocks, bonds, treasury notes, or other securities of the United States. Unlike a conventional bank where you put your money, the Freedmen's Bank was forbidden to make loans. Think about that. There was 50 white trustees in charge of the bank's assets, and they stole the money. Keep that in mind when you say we don't deserve reparations. That's why I say with Big C Sports Podcast, you're going to hear about that. And I'm going to have on a guest that can even elucidate the subject even more, because it's more than just who won a game. I know we have March Madness, and I love sports too, but as a beautiful, intelligent black man, I'm not going to be a guy that just shucks and jive over who won a game. As much as I love sports, there's a lot of things that are more important than that to me, and I want to give that some praise. That's important. I really got to say that. What I also want to do with Big C Sports Podcast is I say it takes it takes a village to raise a child. And I believe that it takes a village to raise a child. And there's a commercial that Larry Bird had on. It was about mayhem. They were trying to get some birds out of his attic. And I was saying Mr. Bird called the Mayhem Insurance Company. And he said, I have some birds in my attic. Would you help me get them out? And the man showed up and said, I'm here to get some birds out of your attic. Who are you? He said, I'm Mr. Bird. He said, oh, okay. Well, can you show me where the birds are in the attic? And he took him to the attic. And Mr. Larry Bird and Mayhem were trying to get the birds out of the attic, and they couldn't get the birds out of the attic. You know what they should have done? They should have called the Big C team. Larry Bird ended up falling into his own bird trap. That's why I say they should have called the Big C team, because we have a guide to protect, preserve, and transfer wealth with Resource Development Consulting, Inc., in conjunction with the law offices of Scott Thibodeau and George Jones, attorneys at law. And we have the missing link. For anyone involved in long-term care, we have over 3 decades of experience, and we use solutions by the book. In fact, when President Lyndon Baines Johnson signed into law civil rights in 1966, right by his side was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And there's an entitlement that people don't know about. We help seniors get to their benefits through Medicare and You, Taking Care of Tomorrow, and in California it's called Medi-Cal. The reason for the Big C team, your family and spouse can avoid the spend down for nursing home costs. And you can find out your options by calling 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. Our promise to you, unlike Larry Bird and Mayhem when he fell through his own roof. And that's why Michael Jordan said the ceiling is the roof. There's nothing wrong with saying the ceiling is the roof, if the ceiling really is the roof. But had he called the RDC team, I bet you we would have gotten those birds out of that attic. And that's what we do for most business owners. We help you get the birds out of your attic. Our promise to you, we specialize to navigate and maximize long-term care benefits. You know anybody dealing with long-term care and they can't afford it? Call the Big C team. Protection of your assets without a spend down. There's no spend down asset test in California as of now. All paperwork and communication liaisons with all government agencies is handled by our staff of entitlement specialists. That's important. Ongoing consulting to provide updates as necessary. We have benefits covering skilled nursing facilities, prescription medical equipment costs, and more. Do you know anybody dealing with skilled nursing? We help with that. Protection of your assets, including your home, thereby allowing you to leave a legacy for your family. Avoiding the nightmare of debt brought by the government's estate recovery program, which can be from 10 to 40%. We have a one-time processing fee versus monthly insurance premiums for the rest of your life. You got to give that some praise. 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. And when I tell you the great thing about the Big C team and helping you protect your assets, if you're a business owner or a person with a home, especially for people in business, oftentimes I'm asked, well, how do you help us if we have a problem and then we own property, we own real estate? We have ways that we need to protect things, and sometimes we don't know how. Your average insurance company, they sell you what's called the gap insurance, but that doesn't protect your assets against deep liability lawsuits. We do that with the RDC team. We do that, and it's important. When you think of asset protection, insurance coverage required by law, general liability, workers' compensation, our lawyers specializing in living trusts, Medicaid or Medi-Cal, planning for long-term care to avoid probate. We deal with life insurance. We deal with your fixed assets, your bank account, your checking account, your savings account, your money market account, your CDs, certificates of deposit, life insurance with cash values, fixed index annuities, variable assets, real estate, qualified money, IRA, 401k, and other investments. Business owners, find out your other options to protect what your insurance company does not cover. So unlike the AFLAC, we cover asset protection. You got to give that some praise. 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. Big C, why do you talk so much about politics on the sports show? I'm glad you asked. Big C Sports was one of the only sports shows written up by the Associated Press, NBC News, CBS News, ABC News, Fox News, about reparations. It said California reparations amount March 30, 2023. Charlton Curry of Sacramento, California, who discusses reparations on his Big C Sports podcast and says that cash payments are necessary. You got to give that some praise. It's not just shucking and jiving over who won a game. And that's what I love about Big C Sports podcast. I want to keep doing that as much as I can, making sure that I always get you. You can't say that it's not there. You got to believe what just happened. I got this new platform and things happen, but I just got a call from the office of AMOS Brown, and I'm telling you, he's going to be on the program coming up. And at the same time, I was just talking about reparations in Big C Sports podcast and how the Associated Press, Janie Harr, did an article on Big C Sports podcast. It wasn't about who won a game. It was about reparations. And as I'm talking to you today, I just got a call to confirm from Barbara Woodridge, who works with Reverend AMOS Brown, who's going to be on the Big C Sports podcast today, and talking about things. It's ironic that I'm a big proponent of reparations and sports, and reparations AB 3121 California, that's part of the bill that's in legislation right now. Also, we have Senator Bradford. He put together Senate Bill 490, and that's in order to create Freedmen's Bureau in California. So when I talk about things that are important, that's part of what I love doing with Big C Sports Podcast, and I want to make sure that everybody understands life is important. But when you have a dignitary like Mr. Brown that can come on a program and he's willing to talk to Big C Sports Podcast, that I want to give that some praise. Not everybody can say that. I want to thank Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight Effect TV for presenting Big C Sports into the universe. Just like in Genesis 1:3, where God said, reparations now, reparations forever. And then God said, let there be light. I got to make sure I clarify that, because some people say, wait a minute, they keep looking for that. Reparations now, I don't see that in the Bible. Well, then he said, let there be light on reparations. That's my opinion that I'm thinking with it. I want to tell you what's different about Big C Sports Podcast is I love doing so many things that are unlike what you find other places. And that's fine to me. I'm going to talk about March Madness too and some teams that are trying to win a game. But what I do that's different with Big C Sports Podcast is I always produce the show. That's number one. Number two, I direct the topics. Number three, I broadcast all the shows. Number four, I do all the sound effects based on the platform provided by the agency. We could all use more laughter in our lives. I know I can. And then the commercials are done. The stats are provided. Even do the storytelling. And then I go, Steph Curry for three. Yes! The great Steph Curry for the Golden State Warriors. My favorite basketball player, by the way. I love his last name especially. It's spelled C-U-R-R-Y. I had some curry the other night and some chicken, if that makes sense to you. And then the show's uploaded to 29 podcast platforms out of New York City, and I'm in Denver Hills, California. And then goes out to 4 TV platforms: Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon and Fire TV. And then I never missed a show since creating Big C Sports back in the day at Salem Media. It became the first time in the history of the United States that NFL Monday Night Football started broadcasting live on the Wall Street Business Network. You got to give that some praise. I say give it praise, praise, praise. And also, I want to tell you the Veterans Crisis Hotline. I love giving that PSA because a mind is a terrible thing to waste. You know, any veterans going through issues, pick up the phone, call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And when you do, you want to give us some praise because we all need somebody to lean on. And I believe having someone to lean on is a great thing. And also, as I tell you, the Big C team, 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624, along with the RDC team. Why would you trust the RDC team when it comes to your estate planning? Because of our endorsements. Would you believe we have the endorsements of Mr. George Jones and Scott Thibodeau? Mr. George Jones is the California chairman of the California Black Chamber of Commerce. He's also the California Black Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Also, Mr. Leon Woods, RDC Development, works with some of the top lobbyists in California. We have Mrs. Cheryl Brown. She's the chair of the California Commission on Aging. She endorses the RDC team. We have Mr. Ray De La Cruz. He's the CEO of Resource Development Consulting. And also Mr. Alex De La Cruz, the founder of American Veterans Benefits. You got to give that some praise in this Charlton Curry of Big C Sports Business Development Consulting. That's what I love about why you should trust the RDC team when it comes to estate planning. At the same time, I rarely have a guest on the show. I've had athletes on the show. I've had some entertainers. I even had some dignitaries that were running for political office. And to me, I want to talk about something that's important that's coming up. I'm going to have a guest, Dr. Amos C. Brown. To me, when I met this man, he was at the California Reparations Task Force along with Shirley Weber, Camila Moore, and obviously Senator Bradford, Reginald Jones Sawyer, and many other dignitaries that I talked about earlier in the program. But the fact that I actually met Mr. Brown coming out of a restaurant, it was called Fixins', and I was fixing to head home after just fixing teared up collard greens. And I saw him get out of his car, and he was going in to the restaurant, and we both said hi to each other. But he was fixing to go tear up some collard greens, so that's what I figured we would both do. The collard greens they have at Fixins' restaurant. But I do want to say that when it comes to a dignitary like Mr. Amos Brown, and one of the reasons I'm honored to have him on the Big C Sports Podcast, I'm going to go into some of his history because it would take too long if I just did it on my own. But when you meet people that have a lifetime of service, then more than just touchdown, home run, three-point play. Old man Willie, he's going all the way. That's the late Bill King for the Oakland Raiders broadcaster. But Reverend Amos Brown, a national member, the member board of the National Board of Directors. Think about that. Member of the National Board of Directors. Known among world leaders, presidents, celebrities, and academics alike for his trademark activism, his intellectual discipline, his masterful oratory, Dr. Amos C. Brown is a legend in his own time, and he tutored by Medgar Evers. Think about that. Benjamin Mays, Samuel Williams, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Pius Barber. As one of the 8 students in the only class that Dr. King ever taught in his lifetime at Morehouse College, Dr. Brown has never seen the issues of society as separate from the mission of the church, especially when the members of the church are directly affected by systems of evil. He's a great man, a native of Jackson, Mississippi. Dr. Brown has been pastor of San Francisco's Third Baptist Church since 1976. As a scholar, a theologian, a preacher, and social activist, he's maintained a marriage of piety and political action in his ministry. He was equipped for great and distinct ministerial leadership through his training at Morehouse College. Has a BA in 1964, earned a degree of Master's of Divinity degree from Kozer Theological Seminary and the Doctor of Ministry from United Theological Seminary. Before accepting the call to Third Baptist, he served as a pastor of St. Paul's Baptist Church in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and Pilgrim Baptist Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Under his leadership, Third Baptist Church has established a summer school program, created an after-school academic enrichment program, Back on Track, in partnership with Temple Emmanuel Congregation, the Charles A. Titney Academy of Music, sponsored more African refugees than any local congregation in the nation. Sponsored 80 children from Tanzania, or Tunisia, some people pronounce it, to receive heart surgery. In the United States, he's someone that his grace stretches around the world. I want to give that some praise, because not many people can say that they've done what he's done. And I wanted to make sure that I do that as I'm going to get ready to bring him on. I'm so honored to meet him and talk with him and have him come on my program. He led the Bay Area in raising over $68,000 for Somalian relief effort in 1984, led in founding the Black American response to the African crisis, which raised $300,000 for the Ethiopian famine crisis, and led an airlift to Ethiopia under the auspices of the National Baptist Convention. In addition to his pastoral responsibilities, he served as a member of the governing board of San Francisco Community College, national chairman of the National Baptist Commission on Civil Rights and Human Services, member of San Francisco Board of Supervisors, chairman of the Bay Area Ecumenical Pastors Conference, the first vice president of the California State Baptist Convention, president of the NAACP branch in San Francisco, California, and a member of the governing board of the National Council of Churches. I'm telling you of Christ. I want to tell you there's so much more. It would take a whole week to edify him. I'm going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. When I come back, we're going to have Mr. AMOS Brown on Big C Sports Podcast. You don't want to miss it. That's in the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 29 podcast applications all over the universe. It's streaming on 4 TV platforms: Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. As I was talking earlier about Mr. Amos C. Brown, Reverend Amos C. Brown, he has so much history. And as I mentioned earlier, I met him at a California Reparations Task Force, and he was such an eloquent speaker. And then I had the pleasure, Mr. Brown, over in Oakland, I think it was at a college in Oakland, and you stood at the door and you spoke extemporaneously about 20 minutes. And the more you spoke, the more people gathered around you to hear you speak. I want to say thank you for being on Big C Sports Podcast. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. As I mentioned before, you were one of the few gentlemen, I was edifying you before I got you on the program. You actually took a class under the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Talk about what that means, especially now knowing how history has taken over.
Well, I was not just in a class with my teacher, Dr. King. I was engaged in the struggle from the age of 14 in Jackson, Mississippi. I organized the first youth council of NAACP. And that instance of that unfortunate lynching of Emmett Till. And I haven't left the struggle since then. I'm now 83, going on 84.
Wow, that's incredible. When people talk about Dr. King, you actually was able to shake his hands and understand under his tutelage. Really do appreciate that. I was also saying how Dr. Brown, a delegate to the 2001 United Nations Conference on Race and Intolerance in Durban, South Africa. Also, people know that you represented the national board of the NAACP in the World Conference. When you go around the world and you see some of the things that have happened, bringing people together, it's not always easy. What gave you the strength? Since 14, you've been acting really like an adult at 14. How did you get that drive to do things for other people as a 14-year-old kid?
Through the influence of my Sunday school teacher at the age of 8, Miss Essie Randall, who in my hometown of Jackson, Mississippi, as a Sunday school teacher at the historic Ferris Street Baptist Church, went around the community there in the Ferris Street Historic District and picked up children and took them to Sunday school.
Wow.
And it was one Sunday morning that she asked me, Amos, do you know what your name means in Hebrew? And I told her no. And she said, well, sit down, son, let me tell you. You have a great name. Your name means Amos, the prophet who bears the burdens of the people. And she said, you're going to be a prophet like Amos in the Bible.
Wow.
And you're going to bear the burdens of our people.
Yes.
And this very sainted lady was also, for 50 years, treasurer of the Jackson, Mississippi branch of the NAACP.
Wow. Wow. I'm honored to have you on the program, Mr. Brown. I also one of the principal national faith leaders to give a response address to the tragedy, I think the San Francisco Day of Remembrance, September 2001, along with Jesse Jackson, met with Nelson Mandela in South Africa, and around issues of African development and United States foreign policy matters. So you go all around the world, not just here in the Bay Area or California or even the United States, but also celebrating the commitment and passion for education and academic excellence. You've been so much of a leader. People say lead, follow, get out of the way. You've been a leader all of your life. Where do you see that leading to right now as people are trying to figure out how do we deal with reparations, how do we deal with the economy, and redress some of the issues that happen to African Americans? What's your thought going forward? And then I want to ask you a few questions, please.
We're just wrestling with the eternal reality of evil. Evil. What is evil? Evil is the absence of the good.
Yes.
And it's not a good thing to deny any human being the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We say that in America, that we have it, but we're hypocrites.
Yeah.
We have permitted that evil of greed, bigotry, indifference, poverty to enter into our human family.
Yes.
We all came from one source. The paleontologist Leakey.
Yep, Dr. Leakey
told us that the first habitat or home of humankind was in the Rift Valley. Where is the Rift Valley? In Kenya and Ethiopia.
Yep.
Where are Kenya and Ethiopia? In Africa.
Yes.
And I contend that since we left our home, we failed to do what my mother told me to do when I left home in Jackson. She said, Amos, behave wherever you go.
Yes.
Don't take anything that doesn't belong to you.
Wow.
Don't ask for anything if you went to someone's home.
Yeah.
Let them offer it to you.
Yes.
And she would say, most of all, be kind to others, regardless to how different they might be. And I never forgot that. But human time, since we left Africa and we migrated around the globe,
yes,
wherever we stopped on a beach or we stopped on a river, we didn't mind our manners. We developed different cultures, but we developed this dichotomous thinking, them against us against them.
Yes.
But we need to master that little pronoun. We are human.
We are
in the human family.
In the human family. That's beautiful,
yeah.
Mr. Brown.
Could you hold on just a minute?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Talking to Mr. Amos C. Brown, and
yes,
just a great leader in civil rights, and a real conversation on Big C Sports Podcast. And I'm just so grateful for his tutelage and what he's teaching us today. As we take a little pause, as he has to be back in just a second. Well, this is Big C Sports Podcast, talking to Mr. Reverend Amos Brown, a civil rights leader. He was also inducted into the International Hall of Fame at the King International Chapel at Morehouse College for a second time. Dr. and Mrs. Brown was invited by President and First Lady Michelle and Barack Obama to a Christmas reception at the White House. So I could talk forever and ever about what you've done in the past, but I want to just finish out asking you a few things, because I met you at the Reparations Task Force rallies in Sacramento, California, also over in Oakland and San Francisco. And can you just talk about what hardly anyone talks about now, Mr. Brown, is the California Reparations Task Force? How did that come to be for you, sir?
I'm the one who introduced the notion in San Francisco in 2019, upon having gone to the national convention of the NAACP in Detroit, Michigan in 2019.
Yes.
It was there that our national president, Derek Johnson, and our chairperson of our national board, Leon Russell, called on our local units to get aboard the movement for reparations.
Yes.
And I introduced the measure to the Board of Supervisors in 2019. And it's a simple matter. We were wronged. That evil Atlantic slave trade that went on for 400 years.
Yes.
That legalized dehumanization of black people in America for 246 years.
Yes.
In which we were treated as if we were tools, things to build the economy of this nation, even to build the White House and Congress. You know, John Steinbeck once said, I wonder how many people in my lifetime have I just looked at but did not see.
Wow.
Unfortunately, here in this nation, we were looked at as being tools, a vast cog in a plantation machinery. Not to be respected as human beings whom we would see as having worth, dignity, and value. And that's the reason why that officer up there in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, put his knee on that man.
George Floyd.
Yes, because he didn't see us as being human. He saw him as being a tool.
Mr. Amos Brown, Reverend Amos Brown on the Big C Sports Podcast. Just a few more minutes of your time. Today we talk about voting, how you were back there, you lived through segregation, you lived through Jim Crow. You're not just someone who read about it, you lived through Jim Crow. You were arrested with Dr. King at a sit-in, not because you did something wrong, but because you wanted to exercise your human rights. How important is voting in 2024 based on what you've been through, sir?
Dr. King said the shortest route to freedom is the voting booth. That's our constitutional right. And no black person in his or her right mind would be found saying, my vote does not count.
Wow.
All votes count. And we need to get up, get out there and register, be informed, and vote our best interests. If you don't, you get what's coming to you.
Wow.
Neglect, you get being dehumanized. You forfeit your responsibility to strike the first blow for freedom. That's it. So I must run here now. I have an emergency. But that's what's important. For there are about 5 million of us in the state of California alone who are eligible to vote but are not registered to vote.
Wow.
Shame on us.
Well
we need to get up, and if the people who are the enemy are gangsters and want to keep us from voting, we ought to be triple, quadruple determined to exercise our right to vote.
Wow, you're a very powerful man. I'll let you run.
Thank you.
Reverend Amos C. Brown. This is Charlton Curry talking to Mr. Brown on the Business Sports Podcast. What a great gentleman. We really do appreciate his time and his energy and his knowledge. And like he said, we got to get out and vote. No matter what your thoughts are on reparations, no matter what your thoughts are on anything else that we got to deal with in society, if we don't get out and vote, then we are part of the problem. No more saying what somebody else needs to do. We got to be the ones to do it. And if we don't do it, we can't blame anyone but ourselves. This is Big C Sports talking to the great Reverend Amos C. Brown on Big C Sports Podcast. I'm going to take what's called the Big C pause, and I'll be back in just a moment. I can't believe how powerful that man is. I'll be back in just a moment. All right, we're back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 29 podcast applications all over the universe and streaming on 4 TV platforms. You know, I just want to say, having the chance to talk to Mr. Amos Brown, Reverend Amos C. Brown, and political activist, also a reverend, and so many awards that would take a whole week to edify what he's done. But the fact that he came on Big C Sports Podcast, I want you to give that some praise. Big C, you talk too much politics. I heard people say that because they just want to hear about who scored a touchdown in a game. I refuse to be that as a beautiful, intelligent black man. Beautiful March 21st, 2024. And just closing for Mr. Reverend Amos C. Brown, and along his journey, sharing Dr. Brown's commitment to service and racial uplift, his wife, Miss Jane Smith Brown of Richmond, Virginia, their two sons, Amos C. Brown Jr. and David Joseph Brown, and his daughter, Kizzy Marie Brown. And for me, when I met Mr. Brown, part of the California Reparations Task Force, I didn't know as much about him then as I do now. But also, I remember when they had the reparations meeting where I was called and interviewed by the Associated Press, and there's a picture that was taken on television, and it had the task force recommends major reparations, and an 1,100-page report provided recommendations for lawmakers. And in that picture, in fact, I should get it framed. I just thought about that. The Secretary of the State of California, Shirley Weber. We had California Senator Stephen Bradford. Also, Dr. Amos C. Brown and the chair, Camila Moore. I was standing right next to the chair of the task force, Camila Moore. And when I think about that picture, it also has, in that picture, it was Councilmember Monica Montgomery Steppe, also Attorney Lisa Holder, as well as Attorney Donald K. Tamaki, and Dr. Javon Scott Lewis, Dr. Shell Grills also, and I think I can see a picture of Assemblymember Reginald Jones Sawyer. How did God allow Big C Sports to be in that picture? And it was on the news. I believe CNN News covered it. And that fact that it was there, and as well as brother Liam Shabazz did a filming of it. He's the owner of Crescent Sports Media, also part of the National Black Wall Street Project. He had a great video that I wish was on national news, because I think his footage was better than what I saw on CNN. That's at the Reparations Task Force. And I know when you listen to Reverend Amos Brown speak, and he actually broke bread with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., not just someone talking about it. So how dare somebody say, well, we don't believe in reparations? The man just elucidated the subject, a historical figure that came on Big C Sports Podcast. He didn't go on ESPN. He didn't go on Fox Sports, CBS Sports with that one shining moment. He came on Big C Sports Podcast. I'm going to cover some sports too, but that's important. And just to pay homage to Reverend Amos C. Brown, just an amazing man, I'm going to play one of his good friends as I keep pushing for reparations now, reparations forever. Take a listen to why reparations are so important from one of the most eloquent speakers ever in the history of the world.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with. And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
You got to give that some praise. It's not just me talking. That's the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. speech, one of the greatest speakers ever. And you can hear Dr. Reverend Amos C. Brown. They have the same kind of oratory. And the fact that they're both can be heard on Big C Sports Podcast, I want to give that some praise, because I'm very honored that he came on the program today and is willing to talk about things that go on and affect African Americans. And that's what I love about Big C Sports Podcast. You got to give that some praise. I'm not just sucking and jiving. I respect my elders, and I respect that the knowledge that you hear about on Big City Sports Podcast, that's important to me. I want to make sure that I do my part. And I don't want to just be someone who doesn't talk about things outside of sports. That's important to me. And I'm so grateful that my show's on an iHeartRadio platform, which is the largest platform in the world. Over 251,000 podcasts. Big C Sports is in the top 100. That's the top 0.5%. You got to give that some praise. I'm one beautiful, intelligent black man. And that's what I'm saying about being factual. Whatever I say, you can Google it. It's not about me. It's about the words that come out of my mouth. What a Christian can say, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Sometimes people say I talk too slow. I'm trying to speed up my talk. I'm trying to talk faster in Big C Sports Podcast, but sometimes I'm not able to. I'm going to keep trying. And as I say, there's actually news that came out, the Goon Squad in Mississippi, and Dr. Reverend Amos C. Brown's from Jackson, but there were 6 police officers called the Goon Squad. They were all in, they were indicted today and also sentenced. I believe sentenced, but they were found guilty. And what they did, they murdered innocent men. That's in 2000. I mean, this is 2024. The news just came out where they were convicted. And the same day that I had Amos C. Brown, Reverend Amos C. Brown, on the Big City Sports Podcast. So that's news that came out today when people say, oh, we don't deserve no reparations. Well, I do believe that, and that's why when I was talking about the California Reparations Task Force, you would have to be a fool to say that we don't deserve reparations. You would have to try not to do it. And that's what I love about Reverend Amos C. Brown, giving him some praise. And thank you so much for coming on Big City Sports Podcast. Really do appreciate you. And yes, we will get our reparations because we deserve it. Descendants of child slavery deserve it. And you know it's true. That's important. I want to, before I touch on a little bit of sports, just in this year alone in 2024, and you probably don't hear about this unless you're on Big City Sports Podcast, but I'm telling you, California lawmakers, they unveiled sweeping legislative proposals aimed at slavery reparations. This came out in February, and California's task force on reparations for descendants of enslaved Africans first presented the report with recommendations, and that's back in 2023. So the lawmakers, right now, the California Legislative Black Caucus announced the 2024 reparations package, priority bill package, and it lists I think 1 of 4 measures, including some human rights violations, formal apology, crimes against humanities on African slaves and their descendants. But money definitely is something that people say when it comes to African Americans. Sometimes people say they don't want to talk about money. Well, there's more than just money. There's other resources, health care, medical care, a lot of things that come. But just like our descendants of Holocaust, they got money. No one said they shouldn't. And we give that praise. And for anyone that doubts what I'm saying, I say if you can't find what I'm saying by Googling what I say, then don't listen to me. So for anyone that says that African Americans, descendants of child of slavery, do not deserve money because it'd be too difficult, I want you to pick up your cell phone and Google Survivors Today Act of 2017. Google it, Survivors Today Act of 2017. It says the Justice for Uncompensated Survivors Today Act of 2017 is United States legislation that requires the State Department to report to Congress on steps that 47 countries in Europe have taken to compensate Holocaust survivors and their heirs for assets seized by Nazi Germany and post-war communist governments. You can't tell me you don't believe in reparations. Give that some praise. There's no difference for African Americans. All that began in Africa. Mr. Tamaki on the Reparations Task Force, Japanese citizen. Family got reparations for the internment camps. So no one with a common sense can talk about not having reparations paid to descendants of chattel slavery. And speaking of that, I want to touch on something that just happened. I guess it happened yesterday. Gambling, 800 gambler. If you have a problem gambling, some people, they don't like money in their wallet, so they want to give it to a gambler so they can suck it out like a vacuum cleaner sucks out dirt. So the LA Dodgers, they fired Shohei Ohtani's interpreter amid allegations of massive theft The LA Dodgers interpreter for Shohei Ohtani was fired Wednesday afternoon after questions surrounding at least $4.5 million in wire transfers sent from Ohtani's bank account to a bookmaking operation. It set off a series of events. Now, the longtime friend and interpreter for Shohei Ohtani incurred the gambling debt to a Southern California bookmaking operation that is under federal investigation. Does the name Pete Rose ring a bell? Now, multiple sources told media outlets that he came to lose his job. It started with reporters asking him questions about wire transfers. Originally, a spokesman for Shohei Ohtani told a sports leader that the slugger had transferred the funds to cover his friend's gambling debts, which would be illegal. Now, the spokesman presented to a sports outlet for a 90-minute interview on Tuesday, during which he laid out his account in great detail, but the sports network prepared to publish the story Wednesday. The spokesman disavowed the account and said Ohtani's lawyers would issue a statement. His lawyers said, wait a minute, you can't go out there and talk about doing something illegal. So a fool represents himself in court. So Shohei Ohtani's lawyers got involved, and they said, Ohtani, are the audio Vulcan mine? The great Spock in Star Trek, if that makes sense to you. But the course of responding to a recent media inquiries discovered that Shohei Ohtani had been a victim of a massive theft, and we're turning this matter over to the authorities. Read the statement from, well, I'm not going to get into his lawyer's name, but the spokesman declined to answer any further questions, and the statement did not specify whom they believe perpetrated the alleged theft. When asked by a sports leader on Wednesday afternoon after the statement if he had been accused of theft, and the gentleman replied that he was told he could not comment, but declined to say by whom. So the developments this week came as a federal investigators are examining the operation run by Southern California bookmakers. I'm not going to mention his name, but the wire transfer payments were sent from Ohtani's bank account to an associate of his friend, according to multiple sources, and bank data reviewed by a sports network. Multiple sources, including the gentleman involved, said that Ohtani does not gamble, 800 Gambler, and that the funds covered by his friend's losses. Who goes a friend $4.5 million? Now, Shohei supposedly has a contract worth $500 million, so $4.5 million is really not that much money to him, especially when you want to give it to a friend. That's what friends are for. But the sports leader reviewed the bank information showing that his name was on two $500,000 payments sent in September and October. And while sports betting is legal in nearly 40 states, it remains illegal in California. Now, government-regulated sports books require bettors to pay up front for their wagers, while illegal bookmakers, they accept bets on credit. And then sources close to gambling operations told a sports leader that a gentleman dealt directly with a person named in the case who placed bets on international soccer matches in other sports, but not on baseball. As Pete Rose was alleged to have gambled on baseball, and so therefore he's out of the Hall of Fame. And then started in 2021, a source said that a named person was aware of the name of the wire transfers, but chose not to ask any questions as long as payments came in. Who asks any question when $500,000 coming in? However, the source said that the person alleged allowed people to believe that Ohtani was a client in order to boost his business. Now, one of the attorneys involved told a sports leader that had never met or spoke with Shohei Ohtani. She declined to answer any other questions. So during a Tuesday interview arranged by Ohtani's spokesman, this is deep, people, asked that Ohtani, he's 29 years old, last year to pay off his gambling debt. That's allegedly, which multiple sources said had ballooned to at least $4,500,000. What in the world are you betting on? Spock, are the audio Vulcan mine? That's a reference to Star Trek. So when you think about 800 Gambler, who in the world bets $4,500,000? It had been placed via, I'm not going to mention those betting services names, but obviously Shohei Ohtani was not happy about it and said he would help him out and make sure they never do this again. That's a lot of helping out. Give someone $4,500,000 and say, now don't bet with those gamblers again. But if he got that kind of money, who knows? Maybe it's like giving a friend $50 to him. But he decided to pay it off, and he wants everyone to know that Shohei Ohtani has zero involvement in betting. He wants people to know that I did not know that it was illegal. I learned my lesson the hard way, and I will never do sports betting ever again, especially with his friends' money. He wasn't betting with his own money. He didn't have $4,500,000 to bet. Be careful when you're wealthy. That's why you need RDC to help you protect all of your assets. 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. Because when you're wealthy, people come after you sometimes. What kind of friend says, I'm going to place $4,500,000 worth of bets, and you don't make that kind of money, and you don't have that kind of money in the bank, and when you need the debt paid off, you call your friend. Shohei Ohtani, did he not know what was going on? Who doesn't? Is there anyone that would not miss $4,500,000 missing out of your account? Well, maybe if he got $500 million in the bank, maybe he wouldn't miss it. Who knows? Ignorance is not acceptable as an excuse in court. He has the money to buy the best attorneys. I don't think it's going to do any time. I don't think he'll be suspended from baseball. I think the Dodgers will suspend him for not knowing how to stay away from stupid people. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. Stay away from gambling, people. Especially $4,500,000 that you don't have. That doesn't make any sense. And that's why you got to be careful. And that's why you got to learn to protect yourself. And that's why a lot of athletes, they get involved with people that love you when you got money. But there's a lot of, when you don't have money, they don't love you. And what kind of friend would incur $4,500,000 in debts and say, well, my friend's going to cover it for me? You believe Shohei Ohtani didn't know what was going on? Maybe he didn't. Maybe he did. But someone knew, or maybe they didn't know. But the 800 gamblers, stay away from that stuff. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. As I always take on every Big C Sports show, I love paying homage to my beautiful family legacy. On my mother's side, my great-grandmother called her Mamo. My great-grandfather called him Pop. Wonderful, beautiful people. My grandmother, muddy, beautiful, loving, kind woman, a seer, could oftentimes look at a person and tell you a lot about their past, present, and future. And then my beautiful grandfather, Hezekiah, another wonderful person, could oftentimes look at someone and tell you what's going on in their lives. And then I can always depend on my mama, the most beautiful mama in the history of the universe. Started a Head Start program, a food program, and then coached an all-boys Little League baseball team to the championship of the universe. The best person I ever met in my life, always saying rise and shine. And then on my father's side, my grandfather, Albert Curry, he was a pastor, had 3 churches. He owned 2 gas stations. And then my beautiful grandmother working side by side with him, she said that when I was 8 years old, she said, there's something about your voice. I love hearing you speak. And I'm on 29 podcast platforms. And I just interviewed the great Reverend Amos C. Brown, who was friends with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I want to say that's really an honor to me. I want to say my beautiful father, former United States Air Force fighter pilot, chief mechanic, always making sure that planes can fly high so we can all stay safe at night. Love my dad with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. Always saying go forward. My beautiful brother Todd, a voracious reader. Always saying develop your mind to its highest extent. And always saying go forward. I love Todd with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful daughter Daisy, the most beautiful daughter in the history of the universe. College graduate, 2 degrees with honors, and 3.5 years from a major university. She said in the very first interview for Big C Sports back at Salem Media, it became the first time in the history of the United States that NFL Monday Night Football started broadcasting live on the Wall Street Business Network because of Big C Sports Podcast. Daisy, you can be anything you want to be. Always trust God. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful, handsome son, Malcolm, the most handsome son in the history of the universe. College student, very smart, erudite, a good man. You can be anything you want to be. Malcolm helped me save trees. I used to always get newspapers and look up stats on players and teams for a Big C Sports podcast. One day, Malcolm said, Dad, why don't you just Google it? And a light bulb went off. Now I'm on 29 podcast platforms interviewing Reverend Amos C. Brown, who was a friend of Dr. King. And then one day Malcolm said, Dad, you want to see Big C Sports on TV? I said, sure. He said, pick up the remote, aim it at the TV, and say, play Big C Sports. You'll see your show come up. That's before it was even on the air. Now streaming on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Malcolm, you can be anything you want to be. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. Always trust God and always do the best you can. And then Big C, with all that wealth of knowledge over the years, just like my great-granddaddy coming out of that barn, always saying you got to believe, you got to believe, you got to believe, saying let's get ready to rumble. I love saying welcome to the show. It's been nominated Big C Sports Podcast. I have no script. I have no three-minute teleprompters. I have no producer in my ear. All I have is my higher self. And I have the honor of having Reverend Dr. Amos C. Brown on Big C Sports Podcast, a friend of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You got to give that some praise. Well, as I always tell you, I'm so grateful to God. If you're going to drink, don't drive. If you're going to drive, don't drink. Because mothers against drunk drivers are mad, and fathers against drunk drivers are mad. It's one of the easiest things not to do. You can call Uber, you can call Lyft, you can walk it off, you can sleep it off. But don't let someone you love get behind the wheel of the car, start driving after they've been drinking. The life you save may be your own or someone you love. That's my story and I'm sticking with it. Well, as my beautiful mother always says, there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. No man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. Anybody going upside your head, they don't love you. You need more LEADA in your life. LEADA is an acronym for love is the answer. Anybody that loves you, they don't hurt you. They don't choke you. They don't slap you. If they do, call 911. Things change when the police show up. That's my story. I'm taking with it. Well, as I always tell you, back in the day, there's a man known by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He's known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, you float like a butterfly and you sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. He said, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Ali said, I'm so pretty, I can't possibly be beat, because every time I listen to Big C Sports, I think reparations now, reparations forever. And then I float like a butterfly, and I sting like a bee. As I always tell you on every Big C Sports show, I thank you, I appreciate you, and I hope that you have a super fantastic day. What about Abraham Lincoln and Dr. King, Big C? That's right. You heard Reverend Amos C. Brown tell you, we deserve to have reparations now. Let's have reparations forever. You cheer louder at a basketball game. Say it like you really mean it. Say reparations now. Let's have reparations forever. Come on, say it like your team just won the game. Let's scream reparations now. Reparations forever. I thank you. I appreciate you. And I hope that you have a super fantastic day.